The Wests Tigers Podcast, proudly supported by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Have your say on everything Wests Tigers by joining up for free today. Follow the link at westtigerspodcast.com.au.
Hello, welcome to the Wests Tigers podcast. It's going to be episode number 170 and Wests Tigers Radio, live on a Sunday night. Thanks for joining us if you're listening in live via Wests Tigers Radio. And we've got Gary Watson, Steve Stretton and Eddie Otto and a whole lot of different things to talk about tonight. Gary, good evening. Your one word to describe that game against Manly.
I used unpolished last week and I'm going to use that same word again. I think it was an unpolished performance.
Unpolished. Steve, what have you got?
I need a phrase. I'm going to say no attention to detail.
No attention to details. A few more than one word.
Steve can't count.
Yeah, alliteration. Eddie, one word to describe the game against Manly at Brookie yesterday.
I'm going to say referee, Joel, because I'm getting sick of the influence referees have on games.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I could go bunker because I think that's a word to use. But I'm going to say frustrating. It was a frustrating afternoon, and unfortunately, it came after a frustrating performance last week against the Dragons. But hey, that's the life of the Wests Tigers fans. Now we're monitoring the Wests Tigers podcast forum this evening, so we're looking forward to our listeners putting up comments and questions there in the thread, in the podcast area of the podcast. And Gary, after 9 o'clock, something new as well.
And we're going to accept calls if we have anyone who wants to call in this week. There's a thread up on the Wests Tigers podcast forum. We're asking for members only, so members of the Wests Tigers podcast forum to join us tonight and come and have a say. If you have a question, if you have an opinion, if you don't agree with something someone has said, give us a call. The link's on the forum. Give us a call and come and have your say. We're very interested, not just to be an echo chamber of us guys giving our same opinions every week. If you've got something you want to add, jump on and we'll have a chat with you.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic thing. And yeah, just echoing Gary's thoughts. Well, you'd be welcome. So if you do have a couple of minutes, come on and join us and add your voice to what we're doing, because we are trying to build a community. That's the whole point of what we're trying to do, is bring Wests Tigers fans together, have a place to discuss things, and for it to be inclusive of us all. There's one thing too that I thought I might just mention, is that there's a new little arm to what we're doing. It's called the Wests Tigers Fan Zone, and basically, if you go and check out westtigersfanzone.com, it's still in its infancy. But what we're trying to do too is bring all sort of into one place information about the ambush, about the podcast forum. So yeah, check that out, westtigersfanzone.com. It's going to be something that's going to grow over time. A little bit of talk on the podcast forum since that Manly game. A little bit of a debate going on about effort. Now, Gary, you've sort of come out and said, I'm pretty happy if the team puts in that sort of effort every week. But the question is, and it's something that I'd like people to have their say on, maybe after 9 if they want to come on, or on the forum. Is effort enough, or when will questions perhaps start to be asked if we're just not converting that effort into 2 points in the bank each week?
For me personally, I look at the squad that we have this year. I have to be realistic. I picked this squad to run outside the top 8, probably into the bottom half of the bottom 8, so probably in the bottom 4 of the competition. Now, for me, I want to see a side that shows up, competes, has a go every week, isn't showing up like the side we saw last year against the Bulldogs and in many games last year that looked like it just didn't want to be there. I want to see a team that goes out there and gives their all. I'm realistic about the squad we have. It is not a strong enough squad. So I'm going to be happy with the performances of our players if they're getting there and they're putting in. And there's some highlights yesterday. There were some things to be positive about yesterday. I want to see from the guys that we have playing this year, those that can contribute throughout to the end of the season, that can prove they are contributors to our side moving forward. I want to see those players stand up, and that's what I'm looking for this year. I said a couple of weeks ago that I'm going to ease up on Madge. I thought, I want to see a committed side, and I'm seeing a committed side. I'm going to give him to the end of the year to show that he is the coach that we need moving forward. And unless we have a side that's week in, week out, or not showing up every second week, I think he can have to the end of the year.
Eddie, is effort a pass mark for the coach? What are your thoughts on this? I mean, we are 7-2 at this stage.
Yes and no. I mean, like Gary said, in large parts of 2021, there was no effort. So I think that's why we all came to the end of the year and wanted Madge out. But this year, I think, of our 7 losses, I think 3 of them beat by 6 or less and 2 of them by round 12. So only really 2 poor performances. And I wrote down these 6 names: Nofaluma, Mamalo, Laurie, Roberts, Talau and Dewey. I think they were 6 of our starting backs last year. So that's a fair chunk of his salary cap sitting on the sideline. And I'll just repeat what I said sort of last week. I know there's, like Steve said, there's no polish to some of these performances, but I still thought there was an 80-minute effort and things to, keep our head up about.
Steve, you said your word, poor attention to detail. I mean, where are you at with this? You're normally the voice of reason around here. Are you being patient? Are you saying, yeah, look, they're putting in, so let's just keep going where we're going?
Firstly, obviously, you don't sit with me during too many games if I'm the voice of reason. But I don't want to be too critical of the side at all. Well, this is a different team this year, without a doubt, to last year, that's for sure. We scored 2 tries and almost got ourselves back into that game yesterday. That wouldn't have happened last year. I know then we made an error off the kickoff and then Manly scored again. I realise that. But, the fact that we actually came back into that game, didn't drop our bundle, didn't drop our heads, is a sign that this is a different team that puts in 80 minutes every week. The frustration for me was in that comment of no attention to detail. It's not about effort, it's about that execution. And, just a couple of things that come to mind. Firstly, it's from the kickoff. You've got to be ready for a short kickoff. Like this is all you do all week. This is all you do is prepare for that game. You've got to be ready for that. You've got to be thinking that is a possibility to happen and not let them roll onto the ball and roll downfield in the first set of the game when we should be, rolling forward, albeit out of our own end. The second thing was the try that was disallowed because our ball player was inside the outside shoulder. I don't know the exact terminology. But again, you practice those plays over and over and over and over again. You've got to get them right. We know it's a ridiculous rule. It's absolutely, the officiating is just absolutely ridiculous. I'm with Eddie, right? But the fact is it's there and we all know it. And that's all you do is practice it and practice it and practice it. So that doesn't really matter who it is running those drills at training and then who it is running those drills in the game. Like you're going to play for injuries at training. You're going to play scenarios, have different players in different positions running drills at training. And it's that attention to detail that has been a part of our Achilles heel for a long time that disappointed me yesterday. I'm not being critical. I didn't expect us to win. We've been absolutely smashed, and I think they're trying their guts out. And, I'm pretty proud of the effort they put in. But the attention to detail is disappointing.
The thing I will say, it's going to be about 3 or 4. The 3 or 4 things I will say is, to start off, we're 2 weeks post beating South Sydney, a team no one expected us to beat. Yes, we've had a couple of weeks where the execution hasn't been as good. But the squad that we have, I can't expect our team to perform at that level every single week. We played South, and what was our completion rate we needed to beat them? Something like 95%. So to compete with those top teams, we have to be playing at our absolute peak. So we can't have a lot of errors. We have to be playing our best football to compete with those teams. That's because of the squad we have at the moment. So there's going to be weeks where we go out there and we can't perform at that level because we're not a strong enough squad. We don't have the players to perform at that level. We don't have the players who can consistently push out 95% completion rates, and no team does. But we don't have the players that can, once that falls away, still managed to get a win because our squad isn't strong enough. We're 2 weeks post beating South's side no one gave us any chance of really beating. 3 weeks post beating Parramatta. I don't think the performances over the 2 weeks should be raising any questions about the coach at the moment, should be raising many questions at all, because they were unpolished performances. They did lack attention to detail, but that all comes about because of the roster we have and the squad not being strong enough and to be competitive with top teams. And Manly has the best player, in my opinion, in the world playing for them. There's a reason why we don't compete those teams week in, week out, because we're not strong enough squad.
I just thought it was interesting, Joel. We haven't, I know it's not a gambling show or anything. We haven't started favourites in one game this year. So you can argue from a mathematical point of view, this team is overachieving because they've won 2 games. And I think they've actually covered their start. So they start at the start of the game, the footy tap start, whatever it is, 5 out of 9 times. So I'm not saying that's a great thing because it means your squad is not good enough. So that, in one reason, I think, they're putting in every week and they're playing maybe above themselves a lot of weeks without people noticing. But to not be favourites once in 9 weeks means the squad we've built over the last 4 years is not good enough, and that has to come back to Madge in some point.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's just going to be an interesting thing to watch if we keep losing games. Where the club goes with, will they back Maguire? Will there be changes? What is this going to look like? If we go through this season and there's only 2 wins, can you keep the coach, given that it's his roster? But they are much deeper questions, and we are going to circle back around and have a little bit of a chat later on about, can 2022 be salvaged, or is it sort of becoming a bit of a write-off at this stage? On the West Tigers podcast forum, Frullins has chimed in. He says, we're playing more than just effort. We're playing with effort on effort, something I've rarely seen a West Tigers team do. He says, we've defended well all year, averaging less than 22 points conceded a game, which was down from about 30 last year. He said, since Hastings has returned at 7, we've attacked much better, averaging 18 points a game compared to 8.4 points a game in the 5 weeks prior. He said, we scored 22 points with a makeshift back 5 and Luciano Leilua missing. He says, we're battling courageously with half our top 17 out. Let's support the team. We'll have a better judge. We'll have a better idea once we get our full squad back later this year. The loss of Luciano Leilua, Gary, you take Luciano out of the team and you lose a lot of what little strike we have left.
Yeah, I think he's been probably close to our best player, if not our best player all season. And Seifaf, who came in to replace him, is a bit of a toilerish, a good footballer, but he doesn't have the impact that Leilua has. And there was no way for us to replace that impact. So I think that was a real loss. I think he would have made a real difference yesterday. So that's just injuries coming back to bite us again. We are in the middle of a really poor run of injuries at the moment, and until that starts to improve, I don't think we're really going to see what this team is capable of. I think we're going to get a lot of games like we got yesterday where they go out and they try hard, but when you've got Alex Seifaf as your starting second rower, you're in trouble from the outset. And when you have a look across that back line, some of the players we've got playing in that back line, we're always going to struggle. There's not enough strike there, and that needs to be looked at. We're so weak in the centres before we even lost players. And the guys we've got playing in the centres now, it's just not good enough for an NRL squad, even though Luke Garner showed a beautiful try yesterday and has had a really good season. The centres just aren't strong enough at the moment.
And then you add to the fact that we did lose Leilua, who's a huge strike weapon for us, and then we lose who I'd classify as one of our other attacking strike weapons, that's Mamalo, in the opening stages of the game. And I was really looking forward to watching that Brooks-Mamalo combination through his kicking yesterday. I thought that could have been an option for us to score points, and that was taken away. So I actually think Frullins is right and definitely don't want to put the message out there of negativity towards the team, because I think they are absolutely trying their guts out, and I agree with Frullins. It's effort on effort on effort. It's a different side, without a doubt. And, not many teams have gone through this level of injury, sustained. And we've got another 4 or 5 weeks of it to go too.
One thing that loss of Amalo did show yesterday, and the highlight it did give for me, is I think Peachy has to be picked over Gildart in the centres. I think that was quite obvious from Peachy's involvement. Yes, I think he adds a lot more, a lot stronger in defence, because Gildart really has no idea how to defend at an NRL level. So I think I'll be keeping Peachy in the centre. So that's one thing that did come out of Amalo getting injured yesterday.
And full credit to the team for the effort that is being shown, but there was a couple of signs there yesterday of not great effort, I thought. The AJ Kapoa miss on the opposite Manly winger for that try up the northern end. I was really disappointed by his effort there, and a couple of Gildart's efforts too were a bit dodgy. Logan R21, Eddie. He says, I beg the question, did Jackson overplay his hand against the Sea Eagles, or did Luke Brooks underplay? I thought, maybe Jackson Hastings probably agree with what Logan R21's trying to say here. I think he's saying that Jackson Hastings tried a bit too hard.
Yeah, I saw a couple of comments there that almost suggested he's handling the ball almost like a lock in terms of, his first receiver there in the middle of the field a lot. But it's early days for that combination, and I've been happy so far. The first up wins against Parramatta and South, he was excellent. I thought he was pretty good yesterday, Hastings, and Brooks set up a lovely try with a kick again. Whether he's too dominant or not, time will tell. Whether teams start to, hunt him down and our attack becomes predictable, then he's going to have to pivot. But I still think it's a positive at the moment, a work in progress.
Work in progress. Gary, what do you think about Jackson Hastings' game? I thought it looked like he wanted to prove that point, but it just wasn't the day for him.
Yeah, and I think halfbacks have that day. I think all halfbacks kind of have that day where they go out there, and he really wanted to win that game yesterday. I'm sure he really wanted to get one over Manly. I'm sure he really wanted to get one over Daly Cherry Evans. It just wasn't the day for it. He didn't. I don't think he played terribly. I thought he had quite a good game, but I don't think he's going to go out there and be our best player every week. In the two wins that we had, I think he was by far and away our best player, and sometimes the day's not just for you. And I think he may have had a little bit of that yesterday, but I thought he was fine during the game. I thought he had a good game. I like him touching the ball a lot. I like him directing our team around the field. I think we've looked so much better since he's been in that role, directing our side around, and I'd like to see that continue.
All right, let's just change tack a little bit. Eddie, your word was referee, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because a friend of mine who's a big Sharks fan, he watched the Tigers Manly game, and I saw him last night, and he said to me, and I normally get very little from him, but he said, "What was with the referee?" And you guys had no chance against the ref and the bunker in that game. I just think, and it's not just us, every game I watch pretty much, I watch these decisions and I just wonder what's going on.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Joel. Even I was watching today the Melbourne and St George game, and Melbourne are an excellent team and would have won anyway, but I think in that first 20 minutes, St George conceded 4 6 against. 2 of them were on the 4th and 5th tackle, which absolutely break you. And I just think since they brought in this bunker and all the referees coaching and watching video, I just think it's just the good referees, in the dinosaur times, and Steve and Gary and yourself might have seen some of those good referees. They used to just manage the game. It's an imperfect game, rugby league. But for me, there's too many of these, gotcha penalties, gotcha, and they kill you, especially with the 6 again. And 9 times out of 10, it's the underdog that cops it. And that was just a carve-up yesterday. I thought we did outstandingly to not concede a try in that first 25 minutes, and then you get a soft sin bin, which changes the course of the game, and we lose that bunker try. We're up 6-0, then all of a sudden it's 14-0 Manly, and it's game over, and it's extremely frustrating.
Steve, forgetting about the sport aspect of it all, I don't know why the NRL is so intent on damaging their product. And again, you guys are probably the same. My wife is not a follower of any team, and she's not that interested, but she watches the games with me sometimes, and she's just completely over it. She's like, how can you watch this? The constant stop, starts, the long decisions, tries that are awarded, and the fans go up and everyone's happy, and then it's taken away. I don't think it's good for the product. I think it would be better for the product if you had some fans that were disillusioned about copping a bad call, than this, I don't think it's good for the product of NRL.
So just on that one, Joel, the latest rendition of how we use the bunker when tries are scored. So a try is scored, and then a referee either awards it a try or a no try. And so what we do, he awards a try, and then we watch 10 replays as that's right. And then they line up a kick a goal, and then after we've watched 10 replays, then the bunker says to the ref, oh, hang on, I think there's a problem here. And he calls time off and he does his little sign, right? And then we watch another 10 replays. Yeah. We do it all again. Now, everyone sitting at home watching the game has already seen whether it was a try or not. They've seen, oh, that may not be a try, or that looks pretty good. So what they've actually done is they've doubled the amount of time we have to sit and wait between the original try being allowed or disallowed and then the final decision. And like, I jumped on socials today knowing we were going to talk about this tonight, and I just went around some of the West Tigers sites, and everyone is talking about it. Now, I know it's passionate, I know it's West Tigers, I know it's 24 hours after a loss, right? But everyone's talking about it. Now, Peter V'landys says he listens to the fans. He needs to listen to this because people are blowing up all over the place about the way the game is being officiated. Graham Annesley comes out and says there is no problem, there is no bias. There absolutely is bias. It's not cheating, it's subconscious bias by referees favouring the top teams because that is the decisions that you should be making. The top teams should be winning, and they are frightened. They are frightened to make controversial decisions and have the lower teams win too many games because it'll make them look bad and they'll lose their spot. That's what's happening. It's not conscious, it's subconscious. And they need to go back to letting the referees rule games, make mistakes, get rid of the bunker. Mistakes are going to happen. We have to accept that, but let the referees go out there and do their job and not have 15 people in their ears constantly throughout a game because they can't concentrate and get a job done doing it like that. Rant over.
Well, that's only the first half of the rant because I have a fair bit I want to say on this issue as well. The big issue I have is I don't want to look at this from a West Tigers point of view.
Yeah.
We were poorly refereed yesterday. We were on the end of some terrible decisions yesterday. I'm not going to blame that for our loss. I don't do that. I want us to control the things that we can control. And if the team is looking for excuses that the referees were poor, the reason we lost, that's not controlling things that you can control. Those things are out of our hands. But I will talk about it from an NRL perspective. And the refereeing needs to change. It needs to change quite dramatically. Now, what I would be doing with that is, as Steve said a moment ago, the use of the bunker needs to be reduced massively. I don't want them interfering on tackles 3 or 4 plays ago. I don't want that. I don't want us going back and giving a penalty for something that was missed 3 or 4 tackles ago. I want them out of the game, except when they're called on by the team. They can be in there for foul play. They can be in there for HIA assessments, all that sort of stuff. I'm fine with them looking at. But in regards to officiating the game, I don't want the referee sending a decision up. I don't want them interfering after a referee's made a decision. If a referee's made a decision and it's wrong, then we have a captain's challenge system. We extend that to include tries. We extend that across the field of game. Maybe give them 1, maybe 2 more unsuccessful challenges in a game. And if a referee makes a mistake and the opposition captain doesn't pick it up, tough luck. Okay? That's better than what we had back in the 80s. That's better than what we had back in the 70s. You had no recourse back in the 80s and the 90s on something that had happened.
Yeah.
So you had the recourse of seeing that there's been a mistake made and you challenge it. And after a try is scored, you have 15 to 20 seconds to challenge what the referee's decided. Well, the game moves on. So there's no sitting around waiting to see if the bunker's going to jump in after watching 15 replays. We don't do that. It's not a sport that, like the NFL, has breaks after every single play. We don't have time for that. We're an endurance sport. We're a sport where we're meant to be outlasting oppositions, and we put these stupid stoppages in the game. I would also allow referees to referee not to these KPIs that they have of things to look for. Oh, this week we're all going to be looking at the play the ball. There's a set of rules for a reason. The referees can use the rules to their discretion. Now, I said this a couple of weeks ago. I want referees to be able to referee using their strengths and weaknesses, their personality. If we have a guy who's a little bit more authoritarian and he likes to blow the PA the whistle because players aren't getting back on side, then you know what? All the teams, all the players will learn that's what this guy is like, and when they have him as a referee, they'll get back on side.
That's right.
If we have another referee who wants to manage teams through the game and say, "Oh, you're getting a bit too far in front of me. If you don't start getting back, I'm going to penalise you." Then that's how he referees. That's his personality. That's how he interacts with people.
Yeah.
By taking this away, we're trying to make our referees like robots, and it just doesn't work. I think it puts added pressure on them that they all have to be identical, that if I don't make that decision now, I'm going to be pulled up on Monday morning because I didn't make that decision.
Yeah.
Unless there's a big howler, I don't care if they let a couple of things go here and there and another referee picks that up in another game, as long as it's consistent in that game that they're being played. I don't care if the referee is consistent across a weekend. I don't care if we have a referee on Monday night who's a little bit harder than the one we have on Sunday. That doesn't matter to me. And in fact, I think it would take away some of the boring aspects we have about our game.
Yeah.
Where teams are all playing the exact type of football. If we have referees who manage the game a little bit differently, some teams may perform a little bit better under a certain referee because he just referees in a different way. I think that adds variety to our game.
Yeah.
I think that's all good things. And the last thing I'll mention, with the six agains, the penalties aren't equal at the moment. And they've never really been equal because you kick for touch and it depend on what tackle you've got or not. The easiest way to fix that up is instead of having six again, add 3 more tackles to the set. So if you're infringing the rack, if it's on the second tackle, it's a 9 tackle set. If it's on the 5th tackle, it's a 9 tackle set. So that penalty becomes a lot more consistent.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter when you get it in the tackle count. The penalty is the same. You just have a 9 tackle set against you. I think that would work a lot better. And I think it would actually result in teams less likely to infringe at the start of the set because they just get 6 again and it's only a 7 tackle set.
Yeah.
So I think that would make a big difference as well.
I agree with you that it's the variables in the game is what makes it interesting. And when you try and just, as you say, every referee is exactly the same as the next one. They're all clones of and everything's looked at under the microscope and you take those variables out, it's not as interesting. So I hope that people at NRL headquarters are listening. I mean, and as you say, it's not a West Tigers thing because I'm watching some games and I'm looking at teams that I hate and I hate them all. Except the West Tigers. And I'm thinking to myself, you poor buggers. Like, that's a terrible decision. I'm feeling sorry for their fans.
Over the last 2 years, I've watched so much less football because it's just not as enjoyable to watch.
Exactly. I've got to say, good news. Record number of live listeners for us tonight, which is excellent. So thanks to everybody listening in through West Tigers Radio. That's really good. And don't forget, after 9, we're going to have a go at getting a couple of listeners on. Eddie, you're a bit of a sport head. You watch all different sports. Peter A., who's been a member of the West Tigers podcast forum for a while, but not too many posts, but welcome, Peter A. Keep them coming. He says, I believe rugby union has a better system, looking at the referral for tries when they get involved, looking at the screen and telling the bunker what they think. I haven't watched a game of rugby union for years, but, is there a better way that we can do this, do you think?
I'm beginning to think there is a better way. I can't speak for rugby union because I haven't watched a game of rugby union in about 15 years. But it used to be king of the penalty goal rugby union, which is why I stopped watching it. But it may have changed in the last 15 years. I'd almost get rid of the bunker altogether. And that sounds crazy. Maybe keep captain's challenges, have 3 captain's challenges and use them for tries because I think the game was a better product in the 90s, early 2000s, honestly. And stop showing the video replay. Just show the replay once. Fans and everyone will get on with it. If you show the replay 14 times, you will find something invariably that's wrong with the try. So I think I'm with Peter Ray there. I'm not sure because he's referencing union, but I think there is definitely a better way than this overkill of the bunker.
Let's circle back around to the West Tigers for a second. Peter A. again on the forum. If we keep putting in the effort that we are at the moment, there will be more than 2 wins this season. My goodness, I hope you're right, Peter. I don't know how I'd go if we only win 2 games all year. It would certainly be a very, very long year. Frullins chimed back in as well in regards to effort versus success and how we're looking at things. He says, we haven't played a game yet with our full squad. When you have a skinny squad, you can't lose players like Adam Dewey for half the season, plus all the other injuries. If you sack Madge this year, you may not re-sign Hastings and Adam Dewey. Not so sure about that. We'll just have to wait and see in regards to that. I just quickly back to the rugby, to the referees and stuff. Like, I've been following for over 35 years, and aside from one decision in one grand final in the late 1980s, I can't really remember where we've got the short end of the stick. Steve, are you sort of, if you put the control back in the referee's hands and take away so much video interference in that, are you happy if we get the bad rub of the green, but overall the product's better?
Yeah, the fact this has been recorded is really tough, isn't it? Because this can come back to haunt you. But yes, I would be. I would be. I think the bunker is not working. I was going to say I think it's not. I know it's not. The bunker is not working. I know it's a lot of money. I know it's a lot of money invested in technology, but it's not working. I believe two things around that. Two things in particular. One is you've got so many voices. I alluded to this before. You've got so many voices in the referee's ear. How can they concentrate? How on earth? Like they're trying to do officiate a game which is the peak game, the peak level of rugby league across Australia, perhaps across the world. The fastest game that's played on the planet, right? The game of rugby league is the NRL. And so they're trying their best to keep up with that. And yet they've got all these other voices making all these calls constantly. That has got to be disruptive. The second thing is when you take away the need for them to make fast, accurate decisions under pressure, when you take that away from them, they will invariably become weaker at that skill. So therefore, when they do have to make a decision under pressure, there's a greater chance over time they're going to get that wrong because they're not used to doing it. And the bunker allows them to do that. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think both Eddie and Gary made a lot of sense. I'm absolutely with what Eddie said. I'd be getting rid of it and minimal replays, and we just have to accept that not all referees, we're not going to get every decision right every time. And I love what Gary said too. Referees are different. There's nothing wrong with that.
Gary, do you feel, and you probably say that a lot of teams feel hard done by it, but do you think there is a bias against West Tigers? Are you picking up anything like that? Is it just a feeling because we're watching them more closely, more emotionally involved?
I think it's more of an issue across the game than just with us. I do think we've had a pretty poor rub of the green with some decisions. A couple of tries especially. Those tries have called drop balls a couple of times this year, I think, have been pretty ordinary decisions. The one from Peachy again yesterday, I think he probably should have been awarded that try. But I'm not a person that likes to sit there after a game and say the referees did us in, we lost because of the referees. I think that starts poor habits, and it's one thing for the fans to do it. But if our club starts doing that we're losing games because of refereeing, then that's not what I want to see. So I tend to avoid that myself.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember my least favourite West Tigers coach ever, Jason Taylor, and he refused to criticise the referees ever. But for me, unfortunately, you're losing the battle there because the top clubs do it. You see guys like Des Hasler in the press conference and they're planting things in their head, and the strong captains like Cameron Smith, Paul Gallen, Thurston, all these guys, I think we're a soft touch. And I saw Madge blow up yesterday and I felt for him because he said he feels at times we get refereed differently, that, we are apparently all over the opposition and trying to slow the game down. But I think that's just a perception because you're a poorer team, so you're trying to slow the game down. Whereas I watched Melbourne today, and they're doing everything to slow the game down, but because they're this silky side, they don't get pinged for it as much. So I don't think the five captains helps us either. I think that makes us a soft touch. I was a big fan of Robbie Farah. I know he had his fault, but as a captain, he would be in the referee's ear for 80 minutes. And the way this bunker and the way this ref and the way the game, I feel sorry for the refs a little bit because the way the game covers it and shows the 10 angles and, dissects NRL 360, 20 minutes looking at a bunker decision. I just think I feel sorry for them in that regard because I don't think other sports do that to their referees either.
Gary, getting live listeners on to have their say, how do we do it? What do we need people to do?
If you want to have a say, jump onto the forum. The link's in the live thread of the forum. I can post it up there again. I'll put it up there again in a moment. If you want to get in and have your say, jump on and have your say.
Eddie, I've got to come back to you. Did you just say, by the way, that Jason Taylor is your least favourite West Tigers coach? So Ivan Cleary's, because you used to be pretty adamant that you hated him.
That's a good point, Joel. That's close, but I don't think you know the depth of my hatred for Taylor, mainly because not just a personal thing, but just because the talent we started to have come through there was gone by the time Cleary was there. You know what I mean? He had the golden talent and it disappeared.
Any given Sunday, who's always comes up with some really good stuff. He says set restarts equals zero scrutiny of referee's decision. He says with zero scrutiny, half the time I feel they are just given, so both sides get about the same number by the end of the match. But 6 agains at certain moments can mean everything, yet in other situations with no real benefit. Equal set restarts on the stat sheet does not mean even officiating. So yeah, that's some good points there. Is you know, there seems to be no analysis there, Steve. If one team's picked up 6 set restarts and the other team's 1, is it too sort of vague? Is there not enough? Whereas if you look at the penalty sheet, one team's got a whole lot, the other one hasn't. It's got a little bit more scrutiny.
Yeah, I don't think stats ever tell the full story. That's why I'll look at stats and make some sort of judgments on player and team performance based on stats, but my great judgment is just watching the game. I'd rather watch the game a couple of times to really think how's that game gone than reading a set of stats. And I think that goes the same with these types of stats as well. Even if the penalty count does end up even, that's not a good judge either, because it depends when you got that penalty, where on the field you got that penalty, at what moment you got that penalty. Like sometimes you sit there watching a game and think, oh, geez, we need a penalty, and you get one and it gets you 30 metres upfield and gets you off your 10 metre line, and that penalty is almost worth 2, So it's all about momentum, we know that, and that 6 again and penalties can build or kill momentum, and so it's when you get them that's important. And I'll add to what you were saying earlier, it's definitely not a West Tigers thing, right? Every single supporter thinks they get cheated out of a game, every game, right? Everyone thinks that. And I do, when I'm watching a game. But when you sit back critically and just analyse it, from a, objective perspective, it's right across the game.
And the big thing with the 6 agains is it really is crucial when you get them. So when in the tackle count makes a huge difference. If you're giving away a 6 again on the first tackle, it turns a 6 tackle set into a 7 tackle set. That's not really any great advantage. It's an extra tackle to get you. But if you get it on the 5th, you're turning it into an 11 tackle set. That's when it gets difficult.
Yeah.
If you give away 6 again on the 5th tackle down your own try line, then that penalty is a massive penalty that really has an impact on the game, because you're unlikely to hold the team out. And that's the real difference. So counting them up, I don't think actually tells you a lot, because it depends on where in the tackle count you get them. As Steve said, where on the field you get them. And a 5th tackle on your try line, set restart, it's almost game over for that set. 9 times, well, maybe not 9 times, but a lot of times they're going to score a try from that.
Just a quick point. I mentioned I don't think we help ourselves with 5 captains, but, yesterday Brookvale Oval is a sellout. You can't tell me that's not an advantage for Manly, and good luck to them. Let's get back to Leichhardt and play 5 or 6 games and pack that joint, because I know it's a lot harder for a referee to penalise us out of the game if we've got a full house at a suburban ground rather than 10,000 a day in Z.
I've got to say, pretty impressive, that northern grandstand at Brookvale too. Seems to change the whole sort of feel of the place. So, yeah, it's pretty nice. I don't know, was that 50 million? Was that more than 50 million? I'm not sure. But, just going a little bit off track, a little bit of talk about Angus Crichton potentially not being at the Roosters. We are 1, 2 back rowers short for 2023. Steve, you an Angus Crichton fan? Could you see him in a West Tigers jersey?
Yeah, I could. I don't know whether he'd be my first choice, but don't ask me to say who would be. I'd have to have a real think about it. But yeah, he's a good player, and he would be better than what we have at the moment. I can say that I know the club are really keen on a couple of young blokes, and I haven't got their names. We need Declan here for that. But there's a couple of young back rowers coming through in the lower grades that I know the club are really hopeful will do good things for us. So I'm not sure they're as concerned about it as a number of us seem to be about saying we need one or two more, fairly experienced back rowers. But short answer to your question, if Crichton wanted to come, I wouldn't be knocking him back.
I think the crucial answer to that is you have a look at what we're losing, and we're losing 3 second rowers the next season. We're losing our 2 starting second rowers, and Luke Garner, a second rower who's played plenty of football for us. I think it's 62 games he's up to in his career now. And that's quite a big hole to fill if you're just relying on one signing coming in and then some young guys coming through. I have high hopes for Blore, but he hasn't spent enough time on the football field to really guarantee success. So we really need to see a little bit more of Blore before I think we go banking our future completely on him. So I would like to see us pick up someone with a little bit of experience. I'll jump at Crichton if we had the opportunity.
Yeah, well, apparently he's looking for a contract, so you never know. And I believe he does have a history with Madge. He would have made his debut under Madge, I think, from memory. Eddie, you're an Angus Crichton fan. Do you think he's what we need?
Oh, it'd be nice. I personally can't see him in a West Tigers sort of jersey. He was a rugby union boy, I think, growing up, and now obviously being at South and the Roosters. So I think he sort of likes the glamour clubs. But if we can get him, like Steve said, I can't name off the top of my head someone who I'd prefer, but good player.
Does Luke Garner's kind of performance yesterday, even though it's out in the centres, does that make you guys reevaluate his loss with him moving on at the end of this season?
No, not really. I said the other night in the pod, he made a 75-metre break yesterday, and that was awesome. But if you look at his performances holistically right across the last season or so, he's a good, solid first grader, and he is a loss because we need good, solid first graders in our squad, and he does fill a hole, but he's not a strike weapon. So I think I said the other night, the answer to that question for me is not the fact we've lost Garner, it's what happens as a result of us losing Garner. So we just have to wait and see there, I suppose.
Gio has put his vote in for Angus Crichton. He said he walks into our side. So, yeah, I tend to agree, Gio, but it would have to be at the right sort of dollars. Eddie, 7 losses, 2 wins, 2022. Can it be salvaged? What does it look like from here, in your opinion?
Similar to what it looked at the start of the year. I think we've just got to be reviewing the team and the coach and the standards we're building and the leadership every single week. And that will determine whether the club and the fans want the same coach in 2023. We're not going to make top 8. I think now we can win 6 to 8 games and we can finish perhaps outside that bottom 4. I can't see us getting much higher than that. So in terms of salvageable for the 8, no. I think we're out of it after a couple of weeks, realistically. But in terms of winning games and building combinations and building standards, more importantly, every week is important.
Steve, can you go 4 years in the NRL without making the finals and be given another pat on the back and another shot? I mean, where do we, if things don't improve, and I know that injuries have to be taken into account, but what's going to happen here, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to change my stance from what I've said over the last couple of weeks. I was losing faith in Maguire, but I'm seeing a very different football side now, and I'm willing to give him a little bit more time. And by saying that, I don't just mean the end of this season. I would not be. I'd be happy for him to keep going into next year. I think there is something building. I think this season's shot. Eddie's right. We're not going to make the 8, but if we can get players back and they're not replacing other players that get injured, if you know what I mean, I think the next month is still going to be a real struggle. But then I think the back end of the season, when we do start, I think there's 3 players all coming back, hopefully in round 14. That's the Tigers' hope at the moment, and that being Dewey and Dewey. I can't remember now who it was. Do you remember, Gary, who it was said? There's 3 coming back round 14 anyway, and so I think if we can get most of our first grade squad on the field the back end of the season, then we could jag a few wins, and it could be promising going into 23.
Yeah, I'm pretty much of the same boat. I was ready for Madge to go at the end of last season. I still think he probably should have been moved on at the end of last season. But we're getting him this year now. I am seeing improvements in the way we're playing. I am seeing improvements in the effort and the commitment and the desire to win. I'm hearing good things out of young players that we've spoken to. I've heard Stefano talk about Maguire, and I've heard Adam Dewey talk about Maguire, and I've heard Hastings talk about Maguire. And they're all saying really good things about him. And they're the guys I want to see us building our club around. So if they're saying that the coach has got us going in the right direction, and I'm seeing that reflected on the field by the way we're playing, then I am open to him continuing on next year. But all that depends on what we're seeing on the field continuing until the end of the season. If we get to the point where we're 8-9 weeks away from the end of the season and the squad looks like it's given up and the effort that we've seen so far this year is no longer there, then I'm going to have concerns. I still have concerns about some of Maguire's decisions. I'm still concerned that he took so long to put Hastings into that halfback role playing both sides of the ruck. That took too long in my mind. These are decisions that he needs to get right, and I still have concerns about those. But I want to see progress this year. Since the start of the season where we had a really poor start to the season, I'm not looking at us making top 8 this year. I'm looking at us building to be a better side for next year. I'm looking for progress in the way our team plays. I want to see our side developing. I want to see our younger players developing. I want to see improvement. That's what I'm looking for this year, and I think that's really important. And I want to see those players that can show they're going to be contributors to a stronger team next year.
I've wavered, Joel, like everyone in here on Madge, but we've come this far, and I still want to see the next 15 games, and I don't want to see performances like 2021. But arguably next year could be his first year with potentially a top 8 roster. Might be bottom of the top 8, but we've come this far, and I think most Tigers fans would say over the past 10 years we have not had a top 8 roster once. Maybe when Jason Taylor was the coach in 2016 with the young guys coming through, but they were unproven. But the bookies every year would have had us finish in the bottom 5 or 6 teams. And then next year when we get those couple of good signings in, maybe he deserves that crack if they can keep playing with the same effort.
Peter Ace reminded us it's Dane Laurie back in round 14 and James Roberts as well, expected around that round 14 as well. I will say this about something that I've been thinking through, and it's funny because if you look at West Tigers 2000, 2001, 2002, and then you look at the last 3 years of the West Tigers, some similarities there in terms of sort of a few false dawns, but not a lot of great progress. But then Sheens came along in 2003, and you started to see some signs. You started to see some young players come through, and our defence in 03 got a lot better. And, to be fair, this year, I can see some bright spots coming through. We haven't quite seen it yet with the youngsters, but, winning the Harold Matthews grand final and some of the young players that, as Steve said, the club's got a rap on. There are some bright spots there. But to be fair, in that game yesterday against Manly, there were some bright spots, some good signs. And I think that you guys are right. I think we are moving in the right direction. We all want it today. Can we be patient? That's going to be the question, and put faith in these guys and hope that they are making the right decisions. Gary?
I think the really crucial thing about that 2002, 2003, 2004 period leading into 2005 were the signings that came along with it. I think we had the good players come through, but we also signed guys like Pat Richards and Brett Hodgson and Scott Prince especially leading into that 2004 season, and that made a big difference. Even signing Scott Sattler for that 12 months, even though he wasn't there for 2005, I think he probably provided a bit of leadership, and that's what we need to do. We need a couple of astute signings to go with some young guys coming through, and even the young guys and they have to be astute signings. I'm not talking about going out and signing to Peter Pangai Jr. like with the options we had last year. They need to be guys that are going to change the fabric of our team, and there's not many of them. So we need to be very astute in who we're looking at and kind of get those decisions right. And hopefully that's something we can do over the next 12 to 18 months that will set us up for a couple of years of having a side that even at the start of the season we go in thinking we're a good chance of making the 8 because it's been a while since I've thought that.
One of those, just going back to that, one of those big signings that always tends to be forgotten is the impact and the difference that Todd Payton made to that team with that extra ball playing ability. We'd love a Todd Payton now. Now he's coaching and he seems to have a very good strike record against us. I'm always worried when we play a Todd Payton coach team, and I think we've got Todd Payton this coming weekend. But we'll talk about that next time we convene later in the week. Gary, just to throw you on the spot, we're working on something in the background for West Tigers Radio. We're working on an actual West Tigers news update. So that's something that we're looking to put into place.
Yeah, that'll be just a segment that's updated every couple of days. It runs on West Tigers Radio between all the other shows that we have on there, the interviews and stuff we have on there. That will give just a little bit of a roundup. Will probably only be 4 or 5 stories of what's in the media about the West Tigers. And we've done up a demo for it last week, and over the next day or so, I'll probably do up one that we'll actually put up live. And if you have a listen to West Tigers Radio, have a listen to it and tell us what you think.
There's also some West Tigers podcast classic moments, Eddie, which go back to our early days, back in the very early days when we both had more hair and maybe I had maybe less grey hair. And we were recording at Kingsgrove Hotel and Oatley Hotel, and it's good to go back and reminisce a little bit. But things, we were frustrated then. I think we're even more frustrated now.
Yeah, I'm too scared to go back and have a listen to one of them, Joel, because I've probably said something outrageous about a certain player or whatever. But, yeah, it does seem like, we've been doing this, probably 4 years now? Is it 4.5 or 3.5?
I think it's 3.5. I think, yeah.
Started 2018 or started 20. I think it was started 2018 with Cleary. So I think we said back then that this was a time 2021, 2022 when we'll be in the top 4 and everything would be rosy, but not to be. But it doesn't mean there's not good things happening.
I love listening back to the old ones and listening to Eddie and Joel. So much behind the signing of Luke Brooks on his current contract and the signing of Maguire, and then I have a listen to the podcast the day before, and oh man, we need to get rid of Maguire. It's great to hear, and if you want to have a laugh at the boys a little bit, jump on there and have a listen to some of their predictions that didn't work out.
Sorry to drop in here, Eddie, but my very first memory of the podcast with you two guys, Joel and Eddie, was Eddie chewing an apple while he was trying to answer a question. That was the first time I listened. I thought
that was probably, I remember doing it because, Joel's done radio for 10 or so years, so I was just the guy doing my own podcast at home, so I was probably a bit nervous, probably didn't even realise I was chewing the apple.
For the record, I don't think anybody could ever say I haven't been a Luke Brooks fan. I always defend him and I always say there's plenty of good parts of that.
Find the quotes.
You can go back and find them. As I always say, there's plenty of good there with Luke Brooks. It's just some areas of his game which let him down, which just prevents him from being just that elite level. But it's a debate for another day when Declan's on board. Yes, Gary.
And in fairness, if you're going to put your opinions out there and you're going to have them recorded and kept further down the track, you're going to get some wrong. Unless your name's Gary Watson, who is correct like 99.9% of the time.
Yeah. Well.
Right, I'll just say quickly, Joel, the guys that I like listening to just on podcasts, might be US sport or whatever, they're not sort of obsessed with being right. They're the guys, I'm not trying to defend myself or anything here, but they are not afraid to change your opinion based on new evidence. I'd like to think that we are trying to achieve that every week.
Yeah, exactly. Frollins couldn't join us. He was going to try and join us, but he's got a sleeping baby on his shoulder, so I think that sounds like a fair excuse. No problems, Frollins. But he's
Not
talking
good
about,
enough, mate. Not good enough.
He's talking about Peyton being an extra ball player. He said, what are our thoughts on Hastings at 7, Brooks at 6, and Adam Dewey at 13? Yeah, I think it could have potential legs. Steve, are you thinking that? I think we're so strapped in the centres that Dewey surely's got to be a little bit further out wide than Locke.
Yeah, I'll repeat what I said, I think, last week when I said I think there's room in our 17 for the three of them, and I'd want the three of them re-signed. I wouldn't want to let any of the three go, and I wouldn't want to use the excuse that the three don't fit into our top 17. I don't believe that. I think Hastings is our 7 for the short term and the medium term. I don't yet like the idea of Dewey and Hastings, and my reasoning might be a little bit different to some others. My reasoning is 2 halves that aren't overly quick. I think Brooks provides that spark, that pace, and I think what he's doing at 5'8" is really good. So is he at 13? I've thrown that up and thought he could be 13. I actually think centre more than 13. I agree with what Gary has said about Dewey's defence. Possibly stopping him from being 13 unless he works on it, builds some bulk. But yes, that's my thinking, I suppose.
Look, I think there's one thing we can do with the season that we have left, and we talk about whether it's salvageable. When he comes back, we have the opportunity to try a couple of things. So when he's back in the side, I don't have a problem with giving him a go at lock. I have concerns about his front on defence at lock, which Steve alluded to, but I'm willing to give him a crack there and see how he goes. And I think there's a couple of things we can try. One thing I want to avoid is trying, Mike, you're going to hate me, but that idea of playing Brooks at 13 I don't think has a lot of merit. But definitely giving Dewey a go in the 13 I think would work.
Thanks again to everybody who's been listening, and as I say, record numbers tonight, which is great. I can't help I can't change the fact that my background is Balmain, so plenty of memories about Balmain Leagues Club, and of course plenty of years Balmain Leagues Club involved with West Tigers as well. But a sad day yesterday, and takes me back to a lot of memories of going there with my father post-game, after Leichhardt games, and in the old days with the, I don't know if you guys remember the Chinese smorgasbord there, that was very good, all you can eat, the ice cream and everything. But anyway, a lot of memories of Balmain Leagues Club. It just kind of makes me sad that a big part of our heritage has sort of been treated like that. Memories of Balmain Leagues, Gary Watson?
Yeah, I used to love going back there after games. I didn't get there back after the 2005 grand final like a few people did, but I would have loved to have been there that night. It was just too hard to get into. But going back there after games, mingling with players, it wasn't a thing where the players just walked in and you just chatted to them and had a drink with them at the bar. I'll miss that. I'm hopeful that one day we'll get something back there, but that looks a long way away at the moment. I think it's pretty much being compulsory acquired by the state government on a 7-year lease. So they have control over it for the next 7 years to use as a dive site for the harbour tunnel, the second harbour tunnel.
Yeah. And
then there is a building approved to go on there that's going to contain the Leagues Club. But if you're adding on a couple of years of construction, you're looking 10 years at least before there's anything there. That's really going to bring that history back for us. So seeing it on fire yesterday definitely was a sad day. But I drive past there regularly, and seeing it in the state it was anyway, it was always a sad time driving past there. So it was very disappointing to see though yesterday.
Steve, any memories for you? Were you there in 2005?
Yeah, I didn't get inside, but I was there outside on Victoria Road with thousands of other people outside of the Leagues Club. Yeah, my memories are similar to Gary. We used to meet up pre-game and have a drink and a feed there, and then walk down to Leichhardt Oval from there. And so, yeah, good memories of Balmain Leagues Club. But yesterday was a sad day. But really, I don't know how long it's been now, but the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? So every time I go past, I just look at it, and just thought, this is just tragedy, really. You know, looking at this club sitting there the way it was, just left to, you know, the way it looked there at the end was just terrible. So yeah, yesterday was awful, but the last 5 or so years, or whatever, however long it's been, was also terrible.
And Eddie, I think from memory, you got in after the grand final. You're up in the auditorium.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I'd only just sort of turned 18. I might have been 19 in 2005, and didn't expect to get into the Leagues Club because I was at the game, the grand final, and took till about 11 o'clock to get there because it was such. I think that Victoria Road was closed, or one of the Darling Street was closed, one of them, and it was members only. So we were lucky we got in, and Benny Elias was working the crowd all night, and I thought, you know, at that age with that side, I thought we'll be back here every year, but I think it was the Leagues Club was closed within probably 12 months of that, and never to come back.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. Hopefully, as sad as what happened yesterday was, hopefully maybe it's, I know it's hard with that compulsory acquisition, but at least maybe it won't be sitting there in such a sad state. Maybe it now will be able to be demolished at least, which will not look quite so bad and quite so, you know, disappointing for those of us who have those memories. And it is a big part of our tradition and our history. Well, that's it, guys. Look at that. We did a full hour, plenty to discuss. And back later in the week to preview the game against the Cowboys. How are we feeling about that game at this stage?
Is it Magic Round this week?
Magic Round.
Okay.
So we actually play at 6 o'clock next Sunday. So if we do Sunday Night Live, we'll be pretty quick straight after.
We're the last game of Magic Round. We must be the main game, aren't we?
Yeah, headlining act.
Alrighty. Thank you, guys. And thanks again for everybody that tuned in, everybody that left a comment on the podcast forum. Keep them coming on the podcast forum as well. And, we'll see you all again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.